all different facets of revitalization.
And buy in and
leave you with an emotion.
trying to mine all of that information for ideas is
Beautiful complexity. Hi, Corona. Welcome to the Inner Circle podcast. We're talking today about a really exciting project, the City Park Revitalization. I'm joined today with two guests for our two-part series from Rios, our design firm that has been contracted to help us design this project. First up, we have Jason Shinoda, who is the design director, who's helping us with all of our design work for the City Park project. Jason, how you doing today?
doing great, Jacob. Thanks.
Nice
How
to
are
have
you?
on the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
So Jason, how did you get into doing design work like this? How long have you been at it, and what drew you to the profession?
Well, I've always had an interest in landscape architecture, in ecological systems and nature, but also in public space. And so landscape architecture brings those two things together. And I've been doing landscape architecture for about 17, 18 years now. Been working with Rios over the past decade and helping the firm realize some really world-class, amazing public realm projects around Los Angeles and the country.
I love that you brought up world class, because Rios does in fact do design projects all over the globe, correct?
We do. Yes, we have offices now in London, Shanghai, Singapore, as well as our offices in Boulder and Austin here in the United States.
Fantastic.
And we're based in LA.
Really excited to have that experience right here in Corona. Jason, we're really excited to have Rios on the team. I think what really stuck out to us when we interviewed Rios and as we talked about our collective vision is that global experience really aligns with what Coronan residents told us they wanted to see, which was really a best-in-class, purpose-built community center that reflected the best from a firm that really has experience working in communities from a wide range of geographies and parts of the world. So this fits really well with the broader downtown revitalization efforts that we have in Corona. As we look across the 6th Street corridor, on the east end of 6th Street, we've got City Park, we've got the Corona Mall, we've got the historic Civic Center, and the City Park project is really that major bookend that helps wrap in all of our efforts to revitalize Corona's downtown. So let me talk for a minute about why City Park and where we're at in that process today. So back in 2020, we undertook a strategic planning process in our community to ask residents what they wanted to see in the next 5, 10, 20 years and beyond. And one of the things that we heard loud and clear from residents is that what was lacking in Corona was a community gathering space, or for a place for people to get together, to celebrate, to enjoy music, to enjoy food, and to really celebrate what it means to be a Coronan. And that actually worked its way into one of our 6 strategic plan goals, which was to build a sense of place in our community. Out of that process came our strategic plan with a specific project calling out City Park as being an important revitalization effort. City Park is still a cherished part of our community, but it's gotten a little worn down, and it's not the park that it once was. And so what I've heard from a lot of residents is the desire to make that a place where people want to come again with their families on weekends, on nights, to celebrate and be together. It also really forms an important part of the catalyst projects that we've identified in our downtown revitalization efforts, is that as we look across the 6th Street corridor, we have a series of city-owned properties that we believe, once revitalized, will help spur that redevelopment that everyone in Corona wants to see. So first off, can you talk to me a little bit about where are we in the City Park design process today? What's that timeline look like? What should we be expecting going forward?
Sure. So today we're bringing 3 concept schemes to the Parks Commission for review. And what that means is that we have 3 kind of overall concept ideas and frameworks for design for the park. They're very different, as everybody will see. And nothing is fixed at that point. We really are looking for getting feedback from as many people as possible to see what works, to tease out the priorities of the community, of the commission, of the city, and to really kind of arrive at a scheme where everybody can get excited and buy in and see all of their concerns addressed.
So the efforts of Rios are really built off a previous lengthy community engagement process, and that was undertaken with the design firm RGM. And what RGM did is they engaged in a lot of listening sessions, pop-up events. We did community surveying. We heard from over 2,200 residents who told us what they wanted to see in the park. And what that culminated in was a conceptual plan that's different than actual construction drawings or the design itself. It was really used to identify what are the amenities that people want to see and what does that overall vision for the park look like. That's where Rios comes in to help bring that concept or that idea to fruition through specific design, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I think what what we're bringing now at this point, we're taking all that information that was gathered and taking all that community input, and now we're trying to come up with a design and a story for the park that people can kind of identify with, and that really speaks to what is Corona and what is the future of Corona. And so we've done a lot of background research off the back of all the research that has been done to get us to this point. To start with the natural history, the urban development history, the looking at all the parks in Corona and the character of all those different spaces and what makes places successful in Corona, as well as different, taking from our experience from developing successful places and parks elsewhere, and bringing that together into 3 schemes now that hopefully will tell the story of this place.
It's been really fun to look at some of those early design concepts, because one of the things that I noticed in those is I can see different pieces of what we've heard from the community begin to come to fruition. They're starting to be visualized in the park in some of those design concepts. So I hope as residents begin to see these designs come out, and as they look and touch some of those 3D models, that they're able to say, hey, that's what we talked about when it came to music gatherings, or I really liked how they incorporated trees into the park because I love the trees, or walking trails. So hopefully as residents are able to look at this, they're able to see how their input is reflected back in those final designs. So Jason, projects of this scope and nature, they don't get built overnight. Can you talk to us a little bit about the timeline and what residents can expect in terms of where we are today until the date when they get a new park to enjoy?
Yeah, sure. So typically we'll be in design development for the next year. So about a year to develop the design, at which point then, the city will appoint a contractor. And typically for a park like this, we're looking at about 2 years of construction. So I think residents can look forward to an opening around the summer of 2027.
Awesome. So most importantly, when it comes to a design firm, talk to us about your design process that you use to develop a finished product that everyone can be excited about.
Sure. Well, to start with, we're building off of all of those engagement processes that you already described. So taking all the information and all the community input that's already been gathered, and then we really go into a deep research phase to start with. So we really want to understand all those components that make Corona, that make the site the site. The site has an incredible rich history of, one of being one of the first public parks here, incredibly interesting and rich history of urban development here with the Circle, Grand Avenue, the race cars, the agricultural past. All those things are really, really interesting. And trying to mine all of that information for ideas is part of the game for us. And what we do, we're a very hands-on collaborative firm. So we really look for input from all of our team members. We probably have about 20 people working on the team, from our architects, our landscape architects, and our experiential designers. And so getting input from all of the team, everybody's encouraged to contribute ideas, and somehow or another we coalesce around certain ideas, and then we really discover things through modeling, through model making, through drawing, sketching, discussions. We pin up drawings on the wall. We had a whole conference room covered in sketches and just a mess of models that I wish everybody could see for the process that got us here today. So it's really collaborative and a bit messy of a process, but it gets us to where we are now.
I had the chance to look at some of those messy sketches, and one of the things that really stuck out to me is how the team really looked at this park from every different angle. I think at one point we looked at the angle of the sun coming into the park. We looked at noise studies. And what really struck me is how very thoughtfully and well you analyzed the entire project to make sure that we didn't really miss any particular angle or perspective, to make sure that this project was very thoughtfully designed. So very impressive. Kudos to your team for the job well done.
Thanks, Jacob.
Welcome back to the second part of our Inner Circle podcast on the revitalization of City Park. We're now sitting with Simone Lapenta. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Amazingly.
Simone is an architectural design director for Rios and is another key player in our team. Simone, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, Jake.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here. So Simone, tell me how you got into design work and what drew you to it, and what do you find fulfilling in this line of work?
So I'm Italian. I'm an Italian architect, and I came to the United States in 2014. And so I'm turning 10 of this beautiful adventure that is, the professional experience in the United States. I'm always been very passionate about building, making. My father was amazing, and so I almost wanted to try to translate that into a more creative way of giving form to ideas. And so I always thought that that my passion lies really at the intersection between functionality and the sense of poetry. So with me, I try to bring back that kind of rich background that my roots are kind of like fond of. And so when I came to United States for work, I really enjoyed the way that you can express yourself in your country. And so I'm really, really happy and very fortunate to be a part of this project, as many other that we do at Rios.
We're lucky to have you here. So Simone, when we talk to Jason, he's landscape architecture. You're building
Architecture.
Tell me about the difference and kind of how does that team dynamic work when you guys are working on a project like this?
Yeah, I think one of the strengths of Rios, I think that we think about project in a way that is completely holistic. We are a multidisciplinary firm, and so we don't think as a park and then we plop into a building. We always try to create a story or a design that can really be seamless between the two of them. And so especially in this case where we had to come up with an idea for a park with a building on top of it, we inquired and kind of like ask ourselves, how can we make something that is gonna really be resonating with the story of Corona, but giving one project that can be seen seamless between expression of nature and expression of mankind or built environment. And so what we do as designing director, we try to be conductor of that process, that is the design process, to foster new ideas coming together and orchestrate them in a way that can be full expression of both the nature of this project, which is the landscape side, and the architectural one.
I think that's one of the things that really stands out with Rios is that it's one thing to build a building somewhere, it's one thing to have a park, but the way that you guys are able to, and what I've heard you talk about is that integration of those spaces to create a unique spot, something that feels natural, it's fluid, it brings together those two elements in a way that's cohesive, is something I'm excited to see, because I know that the difference between a great park and a good park is really being able to bring those two together and marry them in an effective way.
I'm a believer that the places that leave you something are the ones that can leave you a memory or an emotion. And so we don't make a difference between a building or a park. We try to make places that can leave you with an emotion or a memory, long lasting, aside from if it's a series of trees or it's just a series of walls. For us doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, as we looked at some of the different concepts, I loved how you could sort of have a moment in different parts of the park itself, that they could feel very unique and different, but they all tie together in such a great way. I really liked what you talked about a holistic approach to looking at the park as well, because from a city perspective, as we've talked about funding for this project and what this project represents for part of our downtown, it's really part of a holistic revitalization effort. This isn't just about a single one-off project for City Park. This is about bringing our entire downtown back to a place that residents, families, and visitors want to enjoy. So the park itself really bookends the east side of the 6th Street corridor. We've got our Corona Mall project that's really at the heart of 6th Street in Maine. We've got the historic Civic Center Plaza, which we traditionally use for community gatherings. We have our summer concert series there. We closed down the street to have enough room to fit it. So obviously something we're excited about is to be able to have City Park as a purpose-built field or amphitheater, if you will, where people can gather off the street to enjoy music and good food. But that's really our approach to looking at the downtown revitalization, is not in any one single isolated project, but rather these all represent a collective effort to address all different facets of revitalization, whether it's the street itself, trees, park amenities, food and entertainment gatherings, arts and culture. It's to try to bring all of that together with a series of projects that we hope will spur that critical mass or that momentum that we want to see to move our downtown forward. Talk to me about some of the spin-off effects that you've seen with other projects that you've done. What happened in the local community as a result of things that you've been a part of?
We feel that a park is a place for people, and so it needs to be able to resonate with the multitude of them, right? And so creating places that can have different type of experiences, I think it's important, so we can try to kind of like give voice to a different amount of generational changes or generational people that are over there. And so in our project, I think what we do is that we think as our designer can be catalyzers for energies, and so in that way they're not just something that happens isolated within the project itself, but they become propeller for other things to happen for the community. So, for example, the Grand Park in Los Angeles that we've done 10 years ago.
You guys did the Grand Park in Los Angeles.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And that I think it's been a catalyzer for the rejuvenation of that part of the city. And I think it's an expression of the city that manifests something bigger, but then as something that has that kind of power. I think it can bring together with it a complete rejuvenation of all the components that are around it.
Obviously, a project like this brings up the question of cost. A project like this isn't small. This represents one of the single largest investments in Corona that we'll make over the next number of years. And one of the things that we've heard from residents that really spurred this conversation was the need to really reinvest in our downtown and our historic downtown and make it a place that people want to visit and feel safe in again. And so while obviously, the price tag we're looking at for this project is in the range of about $100 million, one of the reasons that we feel confident in moving forward with something of this scale is that residents have told us over and over again, it's time to grow up as a community. We deserve to have a first-class amenity in our community where kids can learn how to swim, where they can go and recreate, where seniors can go to and enjoy programming. Something that's really been designed for this purpose. Typically in Corona, we have an amazing history of being very frugal, and we should be proud of that. We've done a lot of really good work. We've repurposed an old fire station to be our senior center. We took an old museum and we turned it into a recreation center, and we've done a lot with a little. And when residents passed our sales tax measure back in 2020, one of the things we heard consistently from residents is we want to reinvest in our parks and in our recreation programs. And so this really is it's us making good on that promise to bring those dollars back to residents. I think another thing that you oftentimes run into with projects like this is a misconception that this represents a tax increase of some kind. And that's not the case here. Because of the support of Corona residents, we have been able to raise sufficient funds not only to have funding in reserve, but also to pay for any debt servicing that would go along with this. So typically, like with a project of this size, you issue bonds to go with that to pay for the overall construction costs, and those are paid out over the course of 20 or 30 years. And we're in the fortunate position of being able to entirely fund this project and those bonds from pre-existing resources that we already have. And so those Measure X funds that come in will pay for the cost of this project. No new cost to residents. No one's going to see a tax increase on property taxes or anything else of that like, because this project is already funded with the support of our community. For the past 4 years in Corona, we've been very fortunate to have a council that's made very wise financial decisions, some really good decisions. We issued pension obligation bonds. Those will save our taxpayers over $166 million over the next 20 years. And those decisions like that, with our AA+ rating, allow us to both borrow money at a very low interest rate, but it's also freed up funds to be able to reinvest in our downtown without any additional tax burden on our residents. And so instead of those tax payments going out to service debt on our pension obligations, we're able to take those funds that otherwise would have produced no benefit for our community, and we're able to take those funds again and reinvest them into downtown Corona. So we're really pleased to be able to be in a position today to have the funds and the debt servicing capacity to fund a project like this without any new cost to our taxpayers. So Simone, let's get in the weeds a little bit for a minute.
Do it.
Talk to me about what you do as a design director over architecture in this project.
So my job is to raise the level of quality overall and try to pursue excellence in the project, but at the same time try to raise the level of awareness and discussion amongst the team players. So at the end of the day, my job is to try to condensate very, very difficult or complex ideas into something that can be distilled in a very simple concept design.
Sounds like you don't just have an architecture responsibility, but you also have to herd people with different ideas and bring the team together.
An architect is like a psychologist a little bit. And I'm a mediator, meaning that Rios is not about an egotistical design. We don't just go there and say, this is the way. Our process really forces us into giving everybody a voice. And so the resultant is always, I would say, the collective representation of a series of different opinions, emotions, and intentionalities. And so my job is to try to lean and find common grounds and try to scout for that beautiful vision or beautiful idea and fuel it and give it presence and identity. So that at the end of the day, everybody can claim or can see itself represented in that idea. But at least, we have one clear one that we can kind of like go for it.
I think too often we forget about, because we are so hyper focused on community input, I think we sometimes forget that even within that 20-person team, you're going to have a varied set of viewpoints on what right looks like and the best way to approach something. So that's not only balancing external input, but also even within your team, bringing that together and coalescing those ideas.
You hit it on the nail. I think that the job of the architect or the designer is to get out all the constraints, the external one and the internal one, and find a middle ground or a platform where those can live together and create beautiful complexity. And so it was great before when you were talking about, because I think that the master plan gave a lot of ideas to work with. And this engagement, this collective process that we're having with you guys is giving us more to cook with. And so I think at the end, the recipe will be a very rich recipe, and it will speak a lot for everybody that participated in it.
Beautiful complexity. Last thing before we go, favorite part of the process?
That's a tough one. Can I say two?
Sure.
So one was in the early days when we closed ourselves in the meeting room and we started to spitball ideas, and we talked about history and philosophy and culture and drawings and colors and flowers. That is really when you can think that your profession, your work means something. And the second one is actually when we're engaged with you guys, because all that work comes to an end, comes to a place where it makes sense for you, and you are our clients. Corona is our clients, and so making something that can be important for you, it's literally what we're pursuing together.
I love it. We loved being able to collaborate, and I think if there's one thing we all took away from our work with Rios, was an excitement to deliver something to Coronans that they're going to be very proud of.
We all gonna be.
Thank you for joining us today. Remember to like and subscribe, and please go and fill out the survey. We want to hear from you.